Hello traders and welcome to another technical analysis video brought to you by Orbex.com. You're now surfing the waves with Richard. Today is the 16th of October 2018. It is 3:15 p.m. Eastern European Standard Time, and I'm actually on the Orbex blog. I posted an article yesterday, October 15th, in which I'm actually explaining some views, but I'm also going back on some of my previously posted articles, videos, etc. So what I want to do today is I wanted to expand the larger picture in which I was explaining how a massive spike in volatility could actually occur in the previous months, let's say in August, September, etc. Right? So hence the reason why with this article posted yesterday on October 15th, I'm actually going through some of my previously posted articles, trends and reversals. This one, reversals and volatility, which is actually a video, which as you can actually see here, let's say for instance, even on on the dollar index on a daily chart there, when the dollar was actually at the top. Now let's make a move on. When gold was actually at the bottom, and I'm explaining a possibility for gold to actually find the bottom and gonna start actually rising. Silver as well right there. And let's say the euro, of course, when it was exactly, let's say for instance, right here, right about at 1.29, 1.30, etc. Yeah, 1.1, sorry. And I'm also explaining a fractal pattern which I've noticed on the euro US dollar right before it started to rise. So that was one of my leading analysis tools. Also the pound right here when it was at the actual bottom, right? So many other things, including the Dow Jones indices, the VIX, volatility index, and so on, right? So moving on, I mean, with this, with the new horizons, let's say with this article posted on September 26th, I'm actually expanding the trading senses and the analysis, which I'm actually keeping an eye on, and I'm going through some markets here, forex pairs, etc. Right? Right before, let's say for instance, I'm going to take the daily charts posted back then, which I'm actually explaining a possible rise in the dollar index, which actually started and completed, in my personal opinion. And right now, I'm actually looking for more downside as a probability, as a, let's say for instance, as something that could actually occur. The euro dollar back then was at the top, about 1.18, and I'm explaining the possibility for a corrective pattern to actually unfold. Now that it has unfolded, it's interesting. Euro dollar seems to be a bit more interesting, getting a lot of attention right there. So and hence the reason why after this we're gonna go on the the daily charts, but also back it up with some intraday charts on a 2 hour to 2 hour time frame. Yeah, and also the pound dollar. Also, seeing here a possible drop before a bullish trend to actually resume, right? Not to mention the USD JPY on the bearish side completing that, but also the metals, right? Let's say XAU right here, completing on a daily chart, completing this corrective pattern and starting to possibly rise, which actually occurs. So it's seems like the analysis could be on track. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna update this analysis today, and together we're gonna see the most probable scenarios based on the Elliott wave principle. So let's say for instance, moving on, silver as well, just like gold, same probable pattern right there, right before it started to rise. Now I've updated the wave counts a little bit. I perfected it, so yeah, it's only normal. But the start of the day and the cherry on top of the cake is actually the VIX, the volatility index, which I've been, screaming for a couple of months now that this could actually start, and something similar to February 2018 could actually occur, right? So this is the February 18 when Dow Jones lost approximately 3,500 points, and I'm actually explaining the possibility for this to actually return to the downside and start spiking, right? Which actually happened, and the result, let's say for instance, the DAX 30 was was right there at the top on the daily chart, and I'm expecting the possibility for a drop, right? For a solid drop. Also the Dow Jones here, right? Exactly at the top, right before the top, I'm expecting a possibility for this to rise and then start dropping, right? So we're gonna go on the charts right about now, so we can actually follow up. Now the dollar index on the daily chart, this is a real-time chart, okay? So what I have here is I'm labeling this entire structure as a potential expanding flat with an A, B, C right here, an expanding flat in this minute red P. So possibly we could actually start a bearish sequence to finalize one bigger degree pattern, corrective pattern that is, right? As for gold, I'm explaining let's say previously I'm explaining that possibility for that to for this one to actually rise, and the way I'm labeling it, and I had a bit of let's say for instance difficulties, but I do believe that this could actually be an ending diagonal in this C, a rising wedge if you may, right? So moving forward, same probable scenario for the for silver XAG USD on a daily time frame. I'm actually labeling this differently with a W and X as a interruption right here, because there is a possibility of a running flat somewhere in the middle right there, and I'm looking for a possibility for this. Not sure if it's gonna occur, but we'll keep at it. And yeah, the 2 hour time frames, the 2 hour charts will actually tell us more. As for crude oil right here, um, right here at the top, I've labeled this as a potential A B wave, and I'm curious to see what would actually happen right here, because it seems like it could be at the edge, potentially at the edge of the cliff, right? So it would be interesting to see if this thing actually manages to breach this important lower trend line of the ascending channel. Now, as for the euro dollar, this could be something interesting, right? Because right there, as I've previously mentioned with that videos, this was basically the probability and the explanation would be behind this fractal pattern, right? So it did start rising. Now, obviously right there, following up on that with the same view, I'm mentioning the possibility for this to drop and then start rising, right? This is actually what actually happened. So it wasn't a running flat, it was an expanding flat, for instance, right? In this minute B blue, right? So what I'm possibly seeing right now is I mean, I'm seeing the possibility for the euro to actually start a rally similar to this one, right? So we'll actually see what we're gonna zoom in and we'll actually see now. GBP pound US dollar, same principle right here. Let's say, for instance, when I found its bottom, I said that I would actually see a bullish bounce, and rose, dropped, and now seems to be on track right about there when it found its top. I'm actually mentioning possibility for this to actually continue dropping a little bit and then resume the uptrend, right? As for the dollar yen, this is becoming a little bit more complicated right here, so could be a massive corrective piece, corrective pattern. What I've noticed with the VIX spike, with the volatility index, and bears actually returning for the stocks, indices, etc., is that gain actually tends to gain some be powerful, let's say, during this period. So I'm actually just like crude oil right there. I'm interested. I'm very curious to see what will actually happen with this trend line, because it seems to me like it has potentially breached it already. So a corrective piece would be a nice thing to see. Um, as for Germany 30, right? Right about there was the actual post in which I'm explaining. Be right before the VIX spiked, yeah, this potential drop. So this is actually the dollar, the daily time frame, and we're looking at 1,000 point drop, right, on DAX. Now, as for Dow Jones, this is an entirely different story, right? Because I'm actually explaining, even during the live webinars, the live sessions, live webinars, the NFP, non-farm payrolls, live events, but also during that, let's say, during that webinar in which I'm following up on the recently released ebooks, right? This is if I mean if you guys are interested in education, you might as well check this thing out because I'm actually explaining in both of these live sessions um, the possibility for the VIX to actually spike, and I'm explaining the Dow possible scenario, right? So as for the Dow Jones, going back on it, right, right before then, on September 26th, when the article was actually posted, I'm explaining the possibility for this to actually rise a little bit and then start dropping. And what do you know, right? It did. It did drop, and we're talking here about a 2,000 point drop so far, right? Now we'll see because it seems to me like it's actually hovering around this potential breach, but we'll actually see how this next move actually occur. Now, what I do know is that this bearish divergence, this actually its job, and I'm curious, of course, I'm interested to see, to analyze this pattern because it could be a triangle, and if this is a triangle, then of course the next step would be for this to continue on the downside, right? So there's many factors involved, but we'll actually see. As for the S&P, the uh, S&P 500, let's say right here, broke it, yeah, and then dropped very badly. Now you can see a trend line right there, right? But this one is looking a little bit different in a sense that it could retest and then actually potentially continue. Now remember, everything that I'm saying right here is not designed to induce or influence you in any way. This is just my personal opinion. This is not designed to be an investment advice, something like that. No. So my views are mine only, and you should consider the risks involved, right? Now, as for the Nasdaq, same possible scenario right here. I'm actually looking because in a wave four after such a big drop, usually patterns they actually unfold with a triangle. So I'm not excluding that, right? Not to mention that Nasdaq before the drops actually started, it was hovering around here because it already broke the trend lines, right? So after this impulse on the downside, I wouldn't be surprised for this to actually be a triangle. So we'll see. But looking at the VIX, right, on the 2-hour time frame. By the way, the indices by now, until now, were on the 4-hour time frame, and the VIX, could be interesting, right? Because right about here, right before the VIX actually started spiking. Talk about the timing, right? Look at this. Yeah. So, I'm labeling the VIX in a potential extension in this free, right? So the free or freeze right there, then the fifth wave, and then we'll see if this actually gives some sort of corrective pattern about 61.8. I would be interested to see if the 161.8 would actually align with 100% of A and B intermediate orange. So therefore we have minor 1, 2 with a zigzag in the second wave, also zigzag right here in minuet red minute, sorry, and then the rise, right? I mean the actual spike and the volatility taking place, the hit, right? The indices actually have. So right now, what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna follow up on all these views, but for that I'm gonna use the smaller time frame. So I'm on the dollar index right now on the 2-hour time frame, and I'm gonna explain basically this pattern because what I'm seeing is potential expanding flat with an A, B, and then a C leg right there with an expanded flat in uh, minute red B, right? Right after that, it actually started uh, falling right there. So I'm curious to to see if this would indeed be a wave 2 correction or even a wave B, according to how it will look. Of course, this would be changed if it would be a WXY or a simple ABC move or a proper impulse in the C, right? But regardless of that, the pattern is indeed showing possibly more downside for the US dollar. Now, as for gold and the 2-hour time frame, it's an entirely different story, right? Because it started to rise, it started with a free, so I'm labeling it as an A now. This hasn't hit a lower low. So this makes me think that this could possibly be an ABC in a leading diagonal, right? Actually in an ending diagonal in the C, but a leading diagonal in the one. I mean the first leg of the C wave, right? If you know ending diagonals, leading diagonals, etc., you know exactly what I mean, right? If not, then download the ebooks; they're free, so you can actually see what I mean by that. Right there on the Orbex website, go to live chat, etc., and you can actually get them. Now silver, right? But before, right? Let me see. Let me actually continue with this because on the dollar, um, this move could actually complete one entire pattern. I mean, for this minuet black 2 as this degree, and would be interested to see if the downtrend actually starts in an aggressive manner as a sell-off in the US dollar in the greenback, right? So, given that said, back to the gold chart on the 2-hour time frame, um, would be comfortable with a retracement right here in a wave 2 sharp correction, of course, in a wave 2 or a zigzag. Would be comfortable with that before the trend could actually resume on the upside in the free of freeze and a powerful wave, powerful bullish run. As for silver, silver is a bit, I mean, silver is just being silver. Has a very complicated wave count right here, in which I'm labeling it as a W, and then X in a running flat, and then Y, thus having multiples within multiples, hence the reason for the conflict of degrees right here. Then a correction with a multiple overlaps here, very difficult wave count on the silver. So anyhow, the way it's it's rising. Seems like a leading diagonal, so this could be a leading diagonal in an A for this Y, right? Now, all it needs is a proper retracement, and this could be one wave like W, and then a false breakout right here in the Y, in the X, and then to possibly resume on the upside, but we shall see. However, silver is silver, so it can actually go whenever it wants. And the reason why I'm saying that is because in that case, wave 2 could actually be here, and this could be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as a 1, and then wave 2 would actually start, and then the big sell-off, right? So I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt for now, but I'm gonna watch it closely, and of course I will make um, my decision on the actual pattern when I actually see it. Now, let's say for instance, oil on the WTI on the 4-hour time frame. Um, Obviously, right here, I was actually active, right? But I was active on most of them. So even if I go back now, obviously this views actually started unfolding, and now I'm labeling it as a 1, 2 because a trend change needs to actually occur with a 5 waves on the upside, 5 waves on the downside for this to be actually considered as the actual top, right? So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. I need this to confirm 5 waves, yeah, as a 1, and then a proper correction 2. I mean, either a zigzag correction, simple corrective pattern, so I can actually be comfortable, right? As for XAG, spot on right here with this view, as you can actually see, right there. There we go. Yeah, and you can actually see how it hit exactly 1395 and then boom on the upside. As for gold, there were multiple views there on gold. Let's see which one, because this was a bit hard to yeah, I mean this one and obviously these ones as well, right? This was a bit complicated, let's say, the way it started, the way it unfolded. So metals indeed they have difficult wake counts usually, but there is something going on with the euro, right? So with the euro, I'm seeing, let's say, an inverted, let's say, for instance, just like the dollar index, the expanded flat only an inverted right here, expanding flat on the euro with an A, then complex B right here in the C with an ending diagonal right there, completing, possibly completing minute B blue, right? Right after that, let me see. Okay, there we go. And this view, of course, was mentioned earlier by yours truly, right? So we'll see how this actually unfolds. Not only that, but also at the actual top right before it rose, right? Just like that. Okay, and also at the bottoms. There we go. Okay, even even about here. There we go. Right? Okay. So what I'm doing right now is I have mentioned the possibility for the euro US dollar to continue, possibly continue the rise within a rally, right? Not just any wave, but a free or freeze and basically a massive move on the upside. What I would like to see is a proper correction, right? Something like a channel right here, yeah, something like that. So it would be interesting because if this would indeed be a channel, right? Obviously, would be comfortable with the 61.8 or even 50% to be actually hit with that. But just like the dollar index, if this is the second wave, well, uh, at least I know I was actually active right there, right? And there and there and there and everywhere actually. But would be comfortable, let's say for instance, for a proper higher probability view, would be comfortable with one of these fibs to actually be hit, right? And the proper corrective pattern to actually unfold, right? We'll see. Now, in the in the opposite scenario, should this basically breach here, then obviously I would gain more confidence for the upside, especially if I would get something like a small flag here to point on the upside, right? So we'll actually see more on that. Now pound dollar, right? Same, kind of the same pattern, but let's say for instance rose with an A wave right there, and not sure if this should be placed as B just yet, right? Because there are multiple things weighing right now on the pound, especially with the Brexit talks, etc. But let's say for instance I'm labeling it as a first leg A, then I'm for me to label this as a B kind of looks like a leading diagonal, right? I mean, in this rising wedge. So this to be an A, B, and then a C wave, I don't know, right? So it's a bit difficult for me to believe that this is actually the B and the ending diagonal in the C wave, right? So how I'm looking at this is as a potential expanding flat in an A, B, and then C, right? So we'll see if this would actually be the third leg, fourth or fifth leg, the C wave, obviously this C to complete the pattern in this type of manner. Okay, and then obviously the trend to actually resume. So as you can see, for me to have all this analysis lined up, the dollar should deliver one last move on the upside for these fibs to um, be hit, right? And honored, obviously. So we'll see if this occurs. Now, moving forward, moving towards but let me see, before I do that, I would like to show this, right? Okay, so would be interesting, let's say. So USD, USD yen with the previous views right there. Right at the top, right before the bearish divergence actually completed that fifth leg on the downside, on the upside, started dropping, right? So how I'm seeing it right now is as a complete five-wave sequence on the downside with an ending diagonal in the fifth leg of this first leg one minuet black. So it should actually deliver at least a corrective piece, right? A corrective pattern in this second wave. Would be comfortable with a sharp correction, right? So regardless, as you can see, if the US dollar yen would rise, then gold and silver should drop, and so should euro USD and pound US dollar, right? Moving moving towards that, USD Swiss, also on a 2-hour time frame. I'm labeling it as a proper impulse, 1, 2, and then the third leg on the upside. I'm not sure if this could have been the end of minute 4, unless it actually makes a triangle right here, something like this, okay, and then to actually resume the trend line. So would be interesting, right? Because as the fibs will actually say, let's say for instance 61.8 should be in focus, something around let's say 1.0045, 1.0050, something like that. So then we'll actually see. As for the Aussie AUD USD, I'm labeling it already as a 1-2 and a possible leading diagonal followed by what it should be a wave 2 and then the possible rally. So still wait and see game, but the Kiwi NZD USD is showing a bit more. I mean, it looks like it's one step ahead of the of Aussie. It looks like it's in a hurry, right? So still, it could be labeled as an impulse. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, divergence, fourth wave, and then right. So it could actually commence in a extension. We'll see if this actually occurs. Now France 40 actually got hit as well with DAX. Speaking of DAX, right, right there on that right before the VIX actually commenced the spike. I was mentioning the possibility for this to rise and then start a big drop, and amazing, right? Yeah. Now moving on, right? Let's say for instance as extra bonuses, etc. Euro pound. If you remember my previous videos, and one of them I think it's in that video which I shown you. I'm mentioning the possibility for this to actually start a bearish sequence for the Euro GBP to start a bearish sequence on this. So I got it what I wanted. Now it's interesting to see because this trend line should be retested somehow, right? I don't really see that unless it's something like a more of a complex structure in this, right? So we'll keep my eye on this structure. Not decided yet, however, could be quite bearish, especially if the pound US dollar would actually start that impulse on the upside. So could be crucial for euro pound. That's what I'm saying. Now, as for euro yen, this, in my personal opinion, should have been small retracement right here and the last move on the upside, right, to honor this fibs from A and B. Now, something is happening, right? The structure is becoming more and more complex. Euro GPY on the 12-hour time frame is showing a complex corrective structure right here. So would it be interesting to see if this would actually break out or continue dropping? Because if it does continue dropping, then the pattern could be, the direction could be more towards the downside. The downside is as a very high risk, I would say, because the next swing that I would actually see for the downside would be quite big for euro yen and also for the pound yen, which I'm actually on right now in a similar pattern within a channel. um, could actually point towards more upside before the big change, I would say. As for the pound Swiss, kind of the same scenario in which I'm actually explaining this possibility for the rise, right? So the way it unfolded seems to me like this is a complex structure right here, but followed by the potential impulse, right? A sustained move. Now it broke through the channel. I mean the rally, right? The rally channel. So makes me think that this could be a wave two, and or at least a start of a bigger correction in an A, B, and then C, right? For this to put if it's destined to go on the upside, right? However, you guys know my views. I was actually present even back there at the top, right? Um, yeah, somewhere. It's on the daily time frame, I think. Anyway, as for the USD CAD, something is happening. I mean, something interesting is happening because this could actually be a proper breach, right? Um, I'm actually explaining multiple scenarios previously on this, and I'm actually eyeballing 1.31 and 1.333, and you guys can actually see the results there. Boom, dropped there, boom, dropped, right? But following up, of course, most recently with this one, in which I'm explaining things. Now, the way I'm labeling it on the daily time frame is in the leading diagonal in one, correction, sharp correction two, and then another set, right? You know, one, two, one, two. We'll see if this is it or this is the one. I mean, the third wave on the downside, right? However, I would like to mention something here because the way this is unfolding, I believe it's taking a bit more time than expected. So this is one pattern, let's say for instance in a WX, and then this could be the A, this entire thing to be a B. So watch out for a trick right here because this is the only ace that USD CAD can actually pull out of its sleeve and Y for a major, for a bigger corrective B, right? So watch out for that possible scenario. However, this channel has been, let's say for instance, looks like it has been breached. So until other evidence, then I don't know, right? So we'll see how this actually occurs. Now, what I wanted to do is just to share with you my views. Until next time, I would like to say to all my traders, stay in the green and many pips ahead.